wrestling bits. Subscribe now.
AEW Revolution is this weekend, a big deal for you guys. AEW does about one pay-per-view per quarter, which I think is a really good time frame to build up your pay-per-views. But as you guys are growing, you got the new Elevation series that you just announced. Have there been talks to do more pay-per-views per year?
It's something we've always talked about from the beginning as a possibility, but I don't think it's anything we would look at doing immediately. And I think as far as having a big four of Revolution, which is this Sunday, and Double or Nothing, All Out, and Full Gear, I think we've established those are the big four events. And we have a lot of other huge events right now. A lot of our big specials are being featured on Dynamite or streaming specials. And we've had some huge specials like Fyter Fest, New Year's Smash, Winter is Coming, Fight for the Fallen, many others, and Beach Break. And now we've also done some great streaming specials like the Women's Eliminator, which obviously now is culminating in the final tonight, which is going to be a great match with Mizunami versus Nyla Rose. And I think that that tournament's been really great viewership. We're very happy with that. And also, have developed different relationships with different platforms, but our primary partner is Warner first and foremost. So the big focus right now, in addition to launching the extension of the Dark brand, AEW Dark Elevation, we're going to launch another hour of programming on TNT this year. And of course, we always have Dynamite and these big events, and Revolution is, pretty much right around the corner on Sunday. So those are the focus right now. But as far as expanding the pay-per-view offerings, from the beginning when we were building the business model, it was something I considered, but I really wanted to have a big four events. And I think that's what we have, is a grand slam of wrestling.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Dynamite, how it occurs every single week, and it's been doing a good job in 18 to 34 and really kind of cultivating that young viewership. But obviously another dynamic, the elephant in the room, is the Wednesday Night Wars. But there have been talks of NXT possibly moving nights. Now, I know AEW can only control what they focus on in your own brand, but how would you respond to potentially having Wednesday nights all to your own for AEW Dynamite?
I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but it would be great to be unopposed, and I'd love to have an unopposed audience. And when we've done some really good numbers, and I think that would be awesome.
What's weird about this dynamic between AEW and the Wednesday Night Wars, Tony, is I remember growing up in the Monday Night Wars, and me and my friends watched all wrestling. We just loved Goldberg. We loved Austin. It wasn't kind of a competitive thing, but now here we are with this dynamic, and I think it mirrors the society we're in, to where it's more divisive. I'm very surprised with how much AEW versus WWE conjecture I get from fans. So how do you take to it? I know the Young Bucks quit Twitter over this. How do you respond to like the more divisive nature at times between some fans who decide to choose one over the other and essentially start arguing with each other when somebody disagrees?
So I work in the National Football League as well, which is the biggest television and sports property in the world. And it's a very competitive, and the fans jaw at each other a lot. And the wrestling business has been a one-horse race for so long before AEW was formed. And now AEW leading the pack of really pro wrestling companies for the love of pro wrestling, providing pro wrestling. And I'm happy to work with some of the other companies that had been around for a long time. But I think now there's more visibility outside of WWE to professional wrestling than there has been in many, many years. And I do really believe that. So I think it's like sports fans, like it's a healthy thing. And I do also think there was maybe more of this during the Monday Night Wars on the internet than people might have realized. Let me ask you this, Alfred. In 1996, 97, 98, 99, did you spend a lot of time on the internet?
No, I didn't. I was on the internet to check things for WWE, but obviously the dynamic isn't that my social life was on the internet like it is, in parts today.
So as I got older, I went through phases, but from probably age 12 to age 15, most of my life was online, and most of my time was spent on wrestling online or just watching sports on TV. And so it was a lot like this, actually. There were people that were very strong on one side or the other. And there were some people that were really like 100% one way or the other. Some people were 90% one way or the other, 80%, whatever. and you leaned one way or another. And I think there were a lot of people like that on the internet, but there just were way less people on the internet. Now everybody uses some form of social media to some extent, for the most part. Not everybody, I guess, but a lot of people, probably people watching this, most of them are utilizing social media in some form. And I think there's just a lot more people in that medium now. But when I was a kid, it was pretty much firing back and forth, very similar, which was not an unhealthy thing then either. I mean, Eric really stoked the flames of it.
Sure.
And then that led to it going back and forth, and it got very chippy. I don't think it's gotten as personal and chippy this time, which is good, which is really a good thing.
Now,
but I do think, like, on the internet, it was, from my experiences, it wasn't super calm, and it wasn't like everybody was just enjoying everything. There were people definitely taking sides back then. It was just the internet fan base was so much smaller in the late 90s.
Certainly, but you feel that it was every bit as toxic then as it is now. I mean, that's actually kind of
encouraging. You think it's toxic?
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit. I wouldn't define it as toxic, but I will say that I have noticed that people do get a lot more serious in terms of the wrestling when they're going back and forth.
I've been to the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, I've been to all these games, and it gets very intense for the fans on both sides. I've seen fights. I've seen, I haven't seen AEW fans and WWE fans hitting each other with bottles and doing some of the stuff I've seen in, like, college football games, at European football. I've seen some pretty crazy things in Europe and all the European football I've been to through the championship and in the Premier League. So I'm not willing to go all the way and say that I just don't think it's completely, you see people in all walks of life say things that are terrible, but I don't think the debate is unhealthy. I think, in all walks of life, we're starting to see the wrestling debates get a little bit more politicized, where, like, people are just looking at points that are clearly have nothing to do with, the actual story, and trying to make them illustrate their point. And I guess, with no data, with no evidence, people will just say something like it's a fact. And I think we see that in anything. And you see it in sports too. Somebody says this guy's terrible, and it's like, well, there's a lot of evidence. Like, if you actually look at the evidence, he's not terrible. But I just think that's the nature of all sports and all media. It brings a lot out of people, and now with all these platforms to speak about it, people are doing it. But I don't think it's toxic. People can say what they want. I think, like, one of the great things about Twitter is, like, follow who you want, and if I think you can block people and you can mute people, and I think wrestling in general, the social media and stuff has been a positive for it. And now what's interesting is when wrestling made a comeback in the late 90s, the internet was really becoming very popular. It was the .com boom, and a lot of people were rediscovering wrestling and learning about wrestling on the internet. And as the internet got better and better, the more people that were getting into it. Now, linear viewership has changed, but there are still millions of wrestling fans in the world, all over the world. And there's better connectivity than there's ever been with the companies and the wrestlers and the fans. So I don't think it's all toxic, but there definitely are toxic people in all walks of life.
Yeah, exactly. I would argue that, I think most, by and large, it's very pleasant to be on Twitter and engage with wrestling fans. It's just kind of like that dynamic that you're touching on, is that there tends to be maybe a smaller percent of people who are louder and tend to get more attention that maybe they're entitled to. So it may skew the dynamic to maybe some people think it's more toxic than it is.
Yeah, I've been talking to people on the internet about wrestling for over 26 years. So I've seen a lot of stuff and heard a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah, and now I've really become a fan of your character on screen that we see on Impact every week with you and Tony Schiavone. Those have gotten so entertaining. Now, not everybody seems to have liked that. Tommy Dreamer recently came out and made some comments saying that he wasn't a fan of you, quote unquote, burying Impact. I know you grew up a fan of ECW. So how would you respond to the Tommy Dreamers of the world who's saying that maybe you're going too far in burying Impact?
Tommy's working. Tommy's a good friend of mine. Tommy sat in the seat next to me and, like, on a pay-per-view while I'm timing the show and helped agent a match before. He's like a good friend of mine. I think Tommy's like working on the Impact side a little bit, but Tommy's like been standing on the other side of the camera when I've done some of these promos. So it's not like a personal thing between me and Tommy.
That's good to know. That was going to be my follow-up question, actually, is how much of this is Tommy going into business?
It's not a real thing. So, and that might be Tommy's advice, but in this case, it didn't apply. That's not, in this situation, that the advice he gave me is not applicable wrestling advice.
Now, with your on-screen character, Tony, I mean, I'm seeing you get more and more comfortable. You've got this character that's kind of carved out. That's an extension of who you are.
That's not, no, let's clarify if people don't, I'm not doing this in AEW. This is something I do.
Okay, that's what I was going to go. I was going to say, I remember you saying, you were very staunch about saying that you're not going to be a television character in AEW, but the more I see this, the more I think of Vince McMahon in USWA, where he was kind of doing a precursor to the Mr. McMahon character we saw. So are you still of that mindset that we're not going to see a Tony Khan character in AEW?
You're definitely
Tony McMahon.
You're not going to see that one. That's not why I did this, and I have no intention of bringing that to Dynamite. And I think when you hear my name or the use of myself as a general manager, it's really a device that explains how matches get made, because I make the matches, which is true. And I think in 2021, to create like a fake matchmaker or like a proxy of myself, I think would be dumb. And, I watch UFC. I'm friends with Dana White. I see Dana there probably a little bit more than you see me, but not that much more. And, it's not like the fights are all about him. He's there, and he's overseeing it, and, he's in charge, but, it's not all about him. And I think that's a great thing about that company. And I think, that's something we do well too.
Tonight, you're going to have, of course, Shaq opening the show on AEW Dynamite. A lot of people excited about that. You're also going to have Paul White making his on-screen debut with AEW. Tell me, a lot of people are wanting to know how long until we get a potential match between Paul White and Shaq, if that is the plan.
I can't speak to that. This is like really cool that Shaq's doing this. Shaq is a really great person, and he didn't do this for money. He's like a really good friend. And when I first heard from Shaq about him wrestling, the truth is, and this is a great story, it was one of the happiest days of my life. I could count on my hands how many days I've had like this. It's one of the great ones. And it was a very surreal day because it happened late peak of, I would call, pandemic shutdown, lockdown. And when Fulham were promoted to the Premier League in August. And I heard from all kinds of friends and heard from people all over the world, but I know a lot of people don't follow European football. In America, it's not on TV as much, and it's not as readily followed. But I heard from friends all over the world, and got great messages, congratulations from all kinds of people. Bill Belichick, it said congratulations on the win, and all the hard work. And I was like, that's really cool. And then I had a FaceTime from Shaq. And I was like, oh man, what a day. This is the greatest day of my life. And I hit the thing, and I was already ready to like thank him for congratulating me. I was like, this is the best. Like, what a day. You can't top this. And now Shaq, like I grew up a huge Lakers fan, obsessed with basketball, and Shaq's one of my favorite players ever. And I love Shaq as a person. He's just a great man. And so I was so excited. And I'm like, this is the best. And pick up the FaceTime, like, so good to hear from you. It's so good to hear. And he was like, hey, you want me to come wrestle for you? And I was like, oh my God, he has no idea about the game. And he was just like, hey, should I wrestle? What do you think? Like, I was like, yes. Like, oh my God, this thing keeps getting better. So it was really the greatest day of my life. But in all honesty, yeah, he had no idea about the game. So it was it brought me down. Back down to earth in a good way. But that was what a great day that was. And he's a great person, and he's been very kind to us, and I'm just really, really thankful for him doing this. And I wouldn't purport to book him in future matches or speak on his behalf about what he'd be doing, but I'm just very honored he's going to be here with us tonight.
Now, there's a lot going on with AEW. I mean, between the attractions like Shaq and the big signings like Paul White, recently got Sting. There might be some a feeling that AEW might be loading up too much on established names. So how does AEW strategically make sure you balance the young up and coming homegrown stars like the MJFs, the Jungle Boys, the Darby Allins with the established names that you're now signing in free agency?
So developing new platforms and properties, because Dynamite is the best wrestling show on TV as voted by the fans a couple years in a row now. And 2019 and 2020, I think we have a great 2-hour show on TNT. It's going to be awesome tonight. If you get a chance to check it out. And we are expanding the Dark brand. We've expanded Dark in 2020 during the pandemic, gotten a lot more wrestlers involved. It's become a totally different property than it was in 2019 or even pre-pandemic. And it's become a more popular product too. And it's a better product. And it's led to the development of more wrestlers in AEW, and it's led to the development of more diversity in AEW. We've discovered some great female wrestlers. Red Velvet, who is going to be teaming with Cody against Shaq and Jay tonight. She came in through Dark and has worked Darks and really impressed people. Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, is a great upcoming star. He was out the last couple of weeks because he was sick, and it was Willa did not have COVID, but it's in 2021. If somebody has a sore throat or any symptom, you can't take a chance, even if they pass, even if they're negative on COVID, don't take a chance. So Will wasn't feeling well the last couple of weeks, so I asked him to stay home. And he's back with us. Will Hobbs has been tremendous. It's another person who came through Dark and developed. The Acclaimed, Max and Anthony, were both separately on Dark, and that's where I found them and thought, we could package them. And then they also debuted and had their tryout match against the Best Friends on Dark and built up their record. So that property, we've developed a lot of people there, but we also have a lot of the stars there working with these young wrestlers, working with each other, working with independent wrestlers. And we're going to expand the Dark brand and extend it into Elevation on Mondays. And soon we're going to also be extending our property on TNT. It's not going to be a 3rd-hour Dynamite. It'll be a new show, but we'll still be doing another hour of TV. So we're going to, loading up on the stars for sure, loading up on big names, and I'm not done. There's going to be more action in the next week. And, for people who don't, follow AEW, haven't been watching it, now's a great time to get into AEW. We are going to have a great pay-per-view this weekend. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the attendance. We're going to open up. It's still outdoors, socially distanced seating. All the seats are spaced out. Pod seating where you sit with your friends or family. Everyone has to wear masks. But for the fans at home watching the pay-per-view, it's going to be like the experience of having live fans there. And again, tonight on Dynamite, we have a really big crowd tonight. Not huge by the old standards of packing arenas, but like over 1,000 people tonight.
Wow.
And I'm going to open up more seats for Revolution. There's going to be probably about over 1,300 people at Revolution. Well, there is. I mean, they're sold out. It's going to be over 1,300 people at Revolution. And it'll be over, like I said, over 1,000 tonight. And that's a real crowd. They're going to make real noise. It's not like seeing people on a TV going like this. And like, it's a legit thing. And it's going to be great. Tonight, I think we're calling it the Crossroads. I think it's going to be a great show leading into the pay-per-view. And also we've got an hour special after Dynamite promoting the pay-per-view. We've got the countdown. Our countdown specials are some of the best content you'll see in wrestling. And they're great build up for the pay-per-view. And also, the top 6 interviews in all of wrestling last year, as voted by the fans, all of them were in AEW. And a lot of those people will be participating here. So after Dynamite tonight, if you can watch a countdown, I really recommend it. And I'm going to try and twist people's arm to check out Revolution on Sunday. First time we've done a pay-per-view on a Sunday. To be totally honest, I thought it would be really dumb to do a pay-per-view the same day as UFC, and Canelo Alvarez was last Saturday. So this was a good date for us, I thought.
Is the Sunday pay-per-view going to be a normal thing moving forward? Because I know that circumstances maybe forced you to Sunday, but is that something that AEW is looking into doing regularly?
Yeah, on the 3-day holidays, I actually think it does. I think it's good. I actually would argue that on for Double or Nothing and All Out, Sunday is it's very, a large percentage of the country is going to have Monday off. And in England, those are bank holidays. So a large percentage of England, people aren't really working very much. Most people have Labor Day and Memorial Day off here and abroad. So On those, I actually think there is merit to running on Sunday. I will give you the scoop. Double or Nothing, I am strongly considering going to Sunday. All Out, I really think it would be very smart to do Sunday, because then I don't compete with college football, and the NFL won't be going that day. And then Full Gear, I will keep on a Saturday. Yeah. Revolution and Full Gear, whenever possible, I will do on a Saturday. And in this case, I do think All Out and Double or Nothing on a Sunday, there's merit to it when you look at it as a 3-day weekend.
Right. You've been talking a lot about the forbidden door, of course, but putting my Forbes hat on from an economic standpoint, I'm listening and seeing you work with all these different companies like NWA, whether it be AAA, whether it be Impact Wrestling, like we were talking earlier. Is there an economic strategy behind this, in that maybe putting together a streaming platform, much like what Flow Sports tried to do with all these different libraries? Or if there's not,
that didn't work out very well, did it?
No, it did not.
No,
with them.
No, I don't want to do that.
So you don't want to do that. So is there any talk of AEW, obviously, maybe launching its own streaming platform in the future? Have you guys gotten to that point in terms of talking about that?
It's a very valuable library. It's certainly a conversation I've had. And as the library grows and the amount of content we've had grows, which just happens every week with more and more great shows we do, I think there's merit to it. There's other methods of delivery too. There's other ways to deliver the shows. And these are important conversations to be having right now.
So I will leave with this, Tony. It was around November that you made comments saying that the balance of power was shifting in pro wrestling. And of course, people got up in arms and you had to clarify that. But since you made those comments, you've signed Sting, you've signed Paul White, Shaq is going to be on the show tonight. So now that we're here in 2021, do you believe that the balance of power has permanently shifted to AEW?
Well, if you look at the ratings, year over year, the only wrestling company that didn't plummet in the ratings in February year over year was AEW. So yeah, I do think the balance of power has shifted to the fans and to AEW. We keep signing more great wrestlers, and in the next week you'll see more wrestlers debuting in AEW, and I've got some great plans. I think this is going to be a great pay-per-view this weekend, and it'll be the most energy you've heard in a wrestling crowd in a while tonight on Dynamite with Shaq in the house, and then we're expanding it a little bit more for the weekend. So there's no substitute for the great wrestling fans, and you're going to have those at the show. And frankly, by keeping, by holding strong over the last year through the pandemic, we're in a great position now, as hopefully as things start to slowly get back to normal. We're not going to do anything crazy, and I'm not rushing to pack people into arenas anytime soon. But, the fans have supported us through the pandemic, and we've built a great thing here locally with these outdoor shows that for the whole country has been able to provide the experience of, hey, like wrestling with fans, like on TV, it's cool. It's what we all want to see. And so, yeah, it's been a great year for us, and then we're going to have another great year, 2021.
Final question. What match on AEW Revolution are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, it's like, which of your children do you love the most, Alfred? I don't know. I'm really looking forward to the barbed wire exploding death match. The exploding barbed wire death match is going to be one of the coolest things ever, but I'm also really excited about Sting returning to the ring. I'm really excited about the Casino Tag Team Royale. I'm really excited about Face of the Revolution ladder match, the big money match, Matt Hardy versus Hangman. Very excited about Young Bucks defending the tag team titles against Jericho and MJF. There's so much on this show. So the women's eliminator tournament has been fantastic. I'm very excited about tonight's match, Mizunami versus Nyla, and then we'll find out who's challenging Shida. That's going to be tremendous. So the whole card is stacked. And Orange Cassidy and Chuck versus Miro and Kip after the wedding. That they did a great rating for the wedding, and I'm excited to have a big pay-per-view follow-up match. And yeah, it's going to be a great show. If everybody could also check out tonight's show, I would really appreciate it on TNT.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are going to be very interested for a number of reasons, but thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks,
it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
It was great talking to you too. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. You too.
Take care.